So to start for this one, I'm just going to go again with the head. I think it's the best place to start and make a center line. I bring down the neck usually pretty quickly. Kind of helps me center the shoulders. And then finding that main horizontal for the shoulders is important too. Remember to be loose. You don't have to be perfect. Right now, you can always go back and erase and change these things. And this is just an anatomy study. So moving onto the torso, I usually make a circle to kind of just give me a bit of looseness and bearing there, and I'll just drop the arms down in with straight lines. Moving on to the main form, I'll find the torso and find the rib cage shape. This is a kind of complicated shape. It's a little bit like a trapezoid. After you draw enough from references, you'll start to develop your own shape, and everyone's body is different, so each drawing you do will be slightly different. So here I found the rib cage, and I'm going to move down to the hips and kind of try to find the angle of the hips. So see, I drew that back line, and that kind of shows that my eye level is slightly above the hips, or that level of the hips. Again, I'll bring these down, kind of find where the legs insert, and it's kind of an opposite trapezoid again to the torso. You can see the rib cage and the shoulders make a trapezoid, and then the hips make another opposite trapezoid. So I'm kind of just ghosting in the legs and the back. I don't really know exactly where they are. I'm just kind of guesstimating. It's mostly just to give me a feel for where the legs are going to come out and make these kind of smooth curves coming out of the hips. So again, I'm just finding these external shapes that kind of indicate, human forms a little bit more. Coming into the torso again, this is, the breasts and the pectoral muscles kind of rest on top of the rib cage, so it's kind of difficult to find those. You kind of should look at an anatomy diagram and see where those muscles insert into the bones, and so that'll help you kind of visualize those shapes a little more. Again, using references always helps. Coming up with the stuff out of your own imagination is very difficult. So here I'm just going to find one of the arms, and they're just two tubes connected. The second one's usually slightly shorter than as you go down the arm, those tubes get slightly shorter. Let's just find the head shape here and define it a little bit more, just putting some hair in. You can see though that through this drawing we're focused completely on mass, so don't worry about lines so much. This is about mass and understanding mass. So when you're drawing, you should probably think about mass first and then move on to plane, and then maybe eventually move on to line. But all finished artwork you see will have this underlying structure that the artist has either ghosted and erased later, or done on a different layer if he's working digitally. Or in this case, just left on as the main finished product, because we're just doing a structural anatomy study here. So I'm just putting some features in real quick to give it some lifelikeliness. And right there, I just dropped down the sternocleidomastoid, and those are, and the collarbones. And so you can see how there's these kind of triangular anglings in. Here I'm putting in the trapezius in the back. I'll do another video on the musculature and more anatomy to help you visualize this. I'm putting those in, and I'm actually making them more dramatic than the reference image, just to kind of strengthen the study of the anatomy. So here I'm just darkening the lines, making it a little bit easier for you guys to see. When you're doing your own ghosting in, you're going to do finished line work on top. You don't have to make these lines more dramatic. This is just for the sake of the video and for the sake of the study. Also, if you want to print these out and put them on your wall, whatever studies you do, they might help you in the future to remember those shapes, especially if you don't have as many references in front of you. Also, this is an artificial intelligence image, so this anatomy is very dramatic. I mean, I'm sure there are people in the world who have this, who are maybe muscle bodybuilders and weightlifters, things like that, but it's not indicative of a actual, most people do not look like this. So I'm using the AI art primarily because it's very dramatic, and the shapes are dramatic, and it has a lifelikeness that is a little bit more suitable to studying anatomy as opposed to manga or anime, because the comics often have super exaggerated features and that tend to not be close enough to give you a thorough understanding of anatomy. So I'm just going to do a little study on the right here and just show you how the body is basically made up of these two shapes. Well, three if you include the head, but you basically have these two main masses and they're connected by the spine. So you can think of the spine as this kind of sinusoidal S-shaped curve that's going through these masses and connecting them. So I'll simplify them even more here and I'll just make them into boxes. So thinking about the top as torso as a box like this, and thinking as the hips as another box beneath it. And these are just, you can think about these boxes and they can tilt all directions. So they can tilt sideways, forwards, just like you're tilting forwards to bend over and pick something up, tilting sideways to maybe do a stretch, stretch the side of your body. And they can also twist. So they can move in these three directions. So here I'm gonna do a little study where I'm moving the boxes and moving them in different directions just to show you what I'm talking about with these two different masses. And I think I'll include the head here too, just to make it more obvious what I'm talking about. So there's these two main masses for the body. You have the torso and the hips, and then you have the head. You can think of that as another mass, and that can also twist and turn and move in multiple directions. So they're kind of all connected by these curves, and you can study gesture and things like that, and start to connect these shapes. And then you see I'm building the rib cage on top of here right now, and I'll put some of the shoulders in. And as you increase your study of anatomy, you'll begin to be able to layer on top of this basic structure. And I'm taking a lot of these notes from an author named Bridgeman, and Bridgeman's anatomy talks a lot about drawing with just mass, and so, well, at least starting with mass, and so it gives you a much stronger understanding of the human form, because the human form is incredibly complicated and it is very structural, and so understanding the underlying basic structure will help you not just construct your own figures from imagination, but also to see things that you see every day with more structural integrity and more structural understanding. So here I'm just finding some loops and reinforcing the 3D aspect of this structure from this reference image. I'll do more of these videos. I'm just putting some details of the hand here. I'll do more of these videos, but I would encourage you, if you can't find AI art that you like, or look up fitness models or bodybuilders or weightlifters. Olympic weightlifters are great, especially gymnasts. You can also look up ballet dancers. Usually their anatomy is very pronounced because they're very physically, their musculature is very physically defined, they're very physically fit. And so it'll help you see the anatomy much more easily. I'll do another video where I'm actually labeling some of the muscles and showing you their insertion points in the body. You don't really have to know where every single muscle inserts, and your muscles insert into your bones. You don't have to know where every single muscle inserts. If you want to be an expert, you can go and memorize them all, but understanding the basic shapes like the deltoid, the trapezius, the collarbones, that'll all help reinforce your understanding and your drawing abilities.